The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Before I get into my remarks, I do also want to remind Mr. Bhattacharya and Mr. Schellenberger in particular that something else that hurts black children too is when there's misinformation put on social media about their parents and their grandparents, stuffing ballot boxes, cheating, and elections being stolen in places like Atlanta and Milwaukee, and people know that that is specifically meant to be targeted at black people, that hurts black children too. And when misinformation like that is allowed to stay on, which it routinely is, that is bad for black children also. And so when it's on a social media platform like that is, there needs to be some sort of way how to do that. I hope that no one is self-censoring, but like I tell my 16-year-old every day when he goes off to school, and inappropriate things can sometimes come out of his mouth, like anybody in here that has had a teenager, Democrat or Republican, knows that. What I do tell him is, dude, use a filter. Use a filter, dude. You can say that, but should you really say that? And so don't self-censor, but use a filter, dude. Use a filter. At a time when public trust in government remains low, as it has for much of the 21st century, I think that it is disingenuous for the other side of the aisle to politicize free speech in the digital age. There's stuff on Facebook right now that I saw on Hannity that's fake, and you can go on any of these social conservative sites on Facebook right now and see tons of information. It's on my personal Facebook page. You can see all of this. And the truth is that free speech in the digital age will continue to dominate headlines because the internet, as it operates today, really does afford Americans all of the opportunity to freely express themselves in ways that were literally unimaginable 20 years ago. I don't believe anyone in this room can deny that digital communication is going anywhere in the foreseeable future. Instead, we need to focus on a bipartisan basis to find a path forward so we can have common sense policy solution reforms as it relates to Section 230. We all know that the internet is not the same phenomena it was when Section 230 was enacted back in 1996. And so let's just take a quick step back and think about the actual censorship that is going on today as it relates to something like voting. Right now in Texas, they're trying to make it harder for people to vote on college campuses. And to me, that's the ultimate censorship, and that's bad. And so I would hope that we can seriously, again, have a real discussion about how we can make some reforms in Section 230 and come up with some just common sense language on some filters. Professor Overton, I want to thank you for being here today and testifying once again before this subcommittee about how disinformation is dangerous. In your 2020 testimony in front of the subcommittee, you talked about how disinformation on social media presents a real danger to racial equity, voting rights, and democracy. And I want to ask you, are social media platforms doing a better job now than they were 3 years ago to curtail the spread of general disinformation that you previously discussed in front of this subcommittee?
They are better in some ways, and in other areas they've fallen back. 2022 wasn't as bad as 2020 in terms of the aftermath with disinformation about so-called stolen elections. We've got some new factors in terms of Elon Musk buying Twitter and laying off the content moderation staff. So things are different. I also want to talk about bad for black children, and the fact that death rates are higher in black communities is also bad for black children. The fact that kids don't have access to internet and as a result have more learning loss during a pandemic as opposed to other communities is also bad for black children.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. And as we continue to talk through these things, I hope, particularly when it comes to public health, we can try to find a consensus.
Yep.
I know 5 people in one house they were dead in a month. Mm-hmm. Dead in a month over COVID.
Right.
We need to try to find some consensus on these things and not stop making them so divisive.
Right.
When people in our community had so many stories that we knew like that. Of course we wanted our kids in school.
Right.
We know that it was not good for our kids to be in school, but we also had bodies in places like Detroit that were so stacked up that the morgue couldn't even handle them. And that's the reality in Black America also. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.